we are going to talk about medical billing. Because here's the deal. If you have a medical bill in your possession right now, the chances are, like statistically speaking, it's wrong. Some estimates, like this one from Becker's Hospital Review from 2016, claim that up to 80% of medical bills contain errors. Funny, the errors always seem to benefit the hospital and not the patient, but I don't know. And these mistakes cost the American people an average of $46 billion per year. That's like 1/3 of Jeff Bezos. And it's not just straight up errors, because there are basically 3 ways that you are going to end up overpaying for medical services. The first is these billing errors. The second is incorrect denials. And the third is just straight up price gouging. Sounds really fun. Because on average, hospitals charge 4 times their costs to provide a service, and then the insurance company negotiates the discount off of that rate. On average, providers charge consumers roughly 3.5 times what the insurance companies pay. Now, it's no secret that the healthcare system in the United States is very complicated, and honestly, I think a lot of these issues stem from the fact that the prices are like mostly just made up. So with that in mind, I want to share a few of the options that you have available to you, the little tricks you can put up your sleeve so that you can face off confidently with a billing department and save thousands of dollars. So first, we need to start with the basics. How do you read your medical bill? And your explanation of benefits, sometimes abbreviated EOB, so you can identify which, if any, of these 3 issues is happening to you. So the first thing to know is the charge master rate. Now, this is like the MSRP for a medical service. And as we stated before, it is kind of fake. This is why you'll see a bill for something like an MRI clocking in at $5,000. They're literally just pulling stuff out of thin air here. Then you've got the insurance negotiated rate, which is what the hospital and the insurance company agree on. And the difference between the charge master rate and the insurance negotiated rate is the discount. This is also sometimes called the allowed amount, because it's the amount that the insurance company is agreeing to pay for a given service. So, to extend our earlier example, you might find that your insurance company gets you a discount of $2,000 on your $5,000 MRI, but now you're on the hook for the other $3,000. And if the charge exceeds that amount and you saw an out-of-network provider, that's on you. Fun! That process is called balance billing. An in-network provider is not allowed to balance bill you anymore for covered services. And if you went to an out-of-network provider, but for emergency medical services after January 1st, 2022, the No Surprises Act says you also cannot be balance billed for the difference between the insurance negotiated rate and your charge master rate. So that's like 2 rare wins for patients. We love it here. Basically, the best way to go through this process is as though you've just been handed a scavenger hunt treasure map where the buried treasure at the end is not going bankrupt. This process is designed to overwhelm and confuse you. So you probably want to just treat it like a challenge, because that's what it is. Everyone say, "Thank you for profit privatized healthcare system." All right, so let's break down how our 3 most common issues occur on the bill and how you can address them. Now, if you're starting with a particularly large bill, I would recommend starting with the largest charges first and then kind of working your way down. Sometimes things are just plain wrong. This is where the billing errors come in. Now, there are 2 major ways this happens. You've got unbundling and upcoding. Unbundling is what happens when something that should have been added to your bill as just one single procedure is basically broken apart and added as a bunch of different things. For example, in 2014, Duke University had to pay $1 million after it was accused of unbundling cardiac and anesthesia services. Basically, the DOJ said that the hospital at Duke was applying a modifier to the codes so that they could unbundle services that typically were billed together because it helped them get higher reimbursement rates. To understand if this is happening to your bill, there's a tool that you can use called the NCCI Edits Validator. It's found in the Tools menu of Find a Code under the Scrubbing and Validation menu. It does cost money, but you can do a free trial of it if you need to. Basically allows you to enter all of the codes on your bill, and it's designed to run those against a database and flag anything that should not go together. Now, if anything gets flagged, you can call your hospital's billing department and be like, hey, this is not supposed to be here. These two codes should not be together. And so we'll link that in the description for you. Upcoding, on the other hand, that one's a little bit trickier, but it's basically where you end up getting billed for something that is effectively more expensive and more complex than what you actually received. So what can you do about it? This is why getting an itemized bill is so important. Now, the chances that they're just going to send this to you, slim. You're going to have to call, you're going to have to be a pain in the ass, but you want to get the itemized bill because then you can look at each individual item that you're being charged for and see if anything looks out of place or like you don't recognize it. You're also probably going to see things that you don't know what they mean. Medicalese, it's like a whole nother language. So you may need to call your provider and ask for your electronic medical record. You want to use that term specifically. They are required by law to provide that to you. And this electronic medical record has your treatment history. So you're going to have another source of reference to see what was actually done to me, what did I receive, and what am I being billed for. Next up, the services that are listed on your bill may be accurate, but the insurance company might incorrectly deny them. So there are a few reasons why this might happen. You want to start with the basics: name, date of birth, insurance number and information. Make sure everything matches, because if anything is off, that could lead to a denial. The second thing is to check that accounting section. You're going to want to look at all the services that it's saying you received. You'll see the charge master rate, you'll see the insurance negotiated rate, you'll see what the provider is charging the insurance company, and you'll see your responsibility. Now, all of that needs to match the bill that you receive. And then finally, you want to understand if the insurance company denied covered services on your bill and why, because that's where you can start an appeals process. Now, like we said, it's rare they're going to send this to you just out of the goodness of their heart. You're probably going to have to ask, and maybe more than once, for the itemized bill, but once you have it, you'll want to cross-reference that bill with your policy documents. It's possible that something that you received was incorrectly coded and just needs to be corrected with the billing department in order to be covered. It's also possible that it was denied because it wasn't a medical emergency, which you can address by contacting your healthcare provider, aka the doctor or the hospital that you went to, and saying, hey, I think this was a medical emergency. If you agree, can you include a note and resubmit this to insurance? And behind door number 3, the most fun option, everything is correct. You are just being charged erroneously high prices. That's right, the fun just keeps on coming. So this is basically what happens when those exorbitantly high rates, the made up prices that we talked about earlier, somehow end up hitting your bottom line. We've all read the horror stories, right? Of somebody who maybe they don't have insurance, or their insurance is rejecting something and they're not going to cover it, and then they get hit with a $50,000 bill. And then they notice, after tracking down the itemized version, that they were charged, among other things, $250 for aspirin. Now, the best way to push for a lower price is to submit something called a settlement offer. And you're going to want to send that to the billing department. Now, the backbone of your case is probably going to be built in Find a Code, that resource we mentioned earlier. This is going to allow you to enter the HCPCS code, the HCPCS or CPT codes for these procedures, to see what the Medicare reimbursable rate is. That's going to give you a more reasonable range on which to base your offer to them. This part of the exercise is really just to bolster your argument that the price that you are being charged is unreasonable and far out of the ordinary. And finally, you want to argue that this bill is going to create a substantial financial hardship for you. Now, there's a great way to follow up. The very next day after you submit this, you're going to call, confirm that they received it, and then ask them, how long is it going to take you to respond to the settlement offer? You may have to call multiple times, but the vibe that we are trying to convey is, I am watching this shit like a hawk. I am not going to go down easy, and it is of your best interest to work with me here. Maybe they're charging you $5,000 for something, but you know that the Medicare reimbursable rate is $3,000. You might say, hey, I can pay this for $2,800 today. The dirty little secret is that these bills are very often negotiable, and hospitals, for obvious reasons, struggle to collect payment in full, so they'd rather get something from you than risk getting nothing. That said, if you get a no, you want to be the world's squeakiest wheel. Braden, the CEO and founder of Resolve Medical Bills, came onto the Money with Katie show this week, and he told me the way that they track down supervisors and just basically go up the chain in billing departments by using LinkedIn to fight hospital bills for their customers. So if you want to listen to the full interview and go even deeper into this topic, you can check out that episode. It'll be linked in the description of this video. And finally, what about the advice to just lose the bill? Well, that can actually work, but there are some risks. The hospital might send you to collections, and if the bill is more than $500, it will impact your credit report. They can also put liens on your property, they can issue court judgments, get wage garnishment instruments, and while that's not necessarily likely, it's an option on the table. It could happen. And hey, if you haven't gotten a bill for something, you haven't gotten the medical procedure yet, but you know at some point in the future you will, and you want to circumvent this entire process, you might consider shopping around for medical care. Yes, even if you have insurance. You can do this by calling different providers when you know there's a particular service that you need and saying, I am a cash pay customer. They're probably going to say, oh, you're uninsured? To which you repeat, I am a cash pay customer, and I am wondering how much XYZ costs. So in order to figure out whether it's actually cheaper to pay cash, you're going to have to go online and do the sleuthing before you go in for the service, but you're going to need the actual HCPCS or CPT code for the service that you're receiving. Then you should be able to go online and download the chargemaster rate for that procedure and the insurance negotiated rates. Now, hospitals are not always super forthcoming with this information. They're supposed to post it publicly, but very few of them do, which makes this very challenging. And if you can get them to tell you the cash pay rate, you can then cross-reference if it's cheaper to go cash pay or to go through your insurance. This will also probably depend on where you are in the year, how much of your deductible you've already paid, and the type of insurance that you have. Like I said, hospitals are required by law to provide this information online, but the fine for non-compliance is so low that they just don't. I love it here. But there are other resources available to you. So we also interviewed Jeannie Pinder this week on the show. She runs a database called Clear Health Costs, and she's a journalist who's trying to crowdsource this information for different regions so that you can look up a particular procedure and zip code to see what is this going for in this area. What are the cash pay rates that other people have been given at places near you? This can sometimes help you get a sense for what a good price is, because there will be instances where going cash pay actually is cheaper than going through insurance. Of course, maybe the best advice for dealing with egregious medical bills is only ever having medical emergencies in countries that have universal healthcare. That's all for this week, but as I said, if you want to hear the full deep dive on medical billing errors, you can check out this week's episode of the Money with Katie show in the description of this video. And if you like these videos or you found this helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Bye!